Today, NASCAR announced that they will be tearing down Auto Club Speedway and replacing it with a half-mile short track! How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. Big breaking story earlier today. We have so much to talk about. Now, before we get too far into today's video, I got a surprise package the other day from Far Out Toys. They sent me their latest NASCAR Crash Circuit set. Oh my goodness, let's check this thing out. Get it out of the box. Oh boy, I might need a little more space for this. All right, this should do nicely. Check this bad boy out. Sweeping turns, left and right-handers. We got to get these cars juiced up and on the track. Pop some double A's in here and away we go. Woo! Oh, jeez, no. The carnage is very much real. These things are speedy, man. Oh, where'd your top go? What? There we go. Good as new. Thanks Far Out Toys for sending me the latest Team NASCAR Crash Circuit a little ahead of time. The track you see behind me here will be available September 15th. I'm gonna have some fun with this thing, just in time for the holiday season, of course, so be sure to check them out. Far Out Toys, Team NASCAR Crash Circuit. Check it out. All right, well, we've had some fun. Now it's time to get down to the news because NASCAR dropped one of the biggest bombshells of 2020 on us earlier today, and I know that's a pretty high bar to meet. 2020 has been full of wild and unpredictable stories, but what we're talking about today is right up there. So first reported by The Athletic, Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi over there, and it was confirmed by NASCAR earlier today, but yes, Auto Club Speedway, located in Southern California, Fontana, California to be exact, will be tore down, and built in its place will be a half-mile, high-banked short track. Let that sink in for just a moment. You heard me correctly. I know you guys have a lot of questions. We're gonna try to answer pretty much all of them here in this video, but to start with, I just have to say this is a huge win for the more short tracks crowd. That's sort of been a growing movement in the NASCAR fan base over the last several years. A very vocal portion of the fan base has been urging NASCAR to introduce more short tracks to the Cup Series schedule, because right now the NASCAR Cup Series has 3 short tracks: Richmond, Bristol, and Martinsville. They race at each of them twice a year. That's 6 races a year out of 36. NASCAR has not introduced a new short track in decades, and North Wilkesboro closed in the late 90s. That was the 4th short track on the Cup schedule. So they've been with these 3 short tracks, these same 3 tracks for more than 2 decades now. And while those tracks often put on a great show, are often some of the both driver and fan favorites on the schedule, there's just not enough of them. And so I proudly support the idea of more short tracks, and today is a huge win for that movement. Auto Club Speedway, of course, is a 2-mile D-shaped oval, classified technically as an intermediate track. The only other track similar to it in layout on the schedule is Michigan, also a 2-mile D-shaped oval, typically pretty flat banking compared to the 1.5 miles like Texas and Charlotte. Personally, I am extremely excited to hear that NASCAR is changing that track into a half-mile short track that sort of, we'll look at it in a minute, looks like a hybrid of Martinsville and Bristol, if that's even possible, but I am 100% for this. Now, that being said, Auto Club Speedway would not have been my first choice of tracks to be replaced by a short track. Auto Club Speedway is not a great track. It does not consistently put on great racing, but we've seen, some great moments at Auto Club Speedway, like that dramatic finish at the end of the 2013 race, or 2011 Harvick versus Johnson. It's had some great moments even in the last decade, but Auto Club Speedway is not traditionally thought of as one of the more exciting stops on the NASCAR schedule, other than the fact that it's Hollywood, or the closest thing NASCAR gets to it. But that being said, Auto Club Speedway would not have been my first choice. I grew up in Texas. I went to Texas Motor Speedway a lot as a kid. Texas Motor Speedway would be top of my list as far as tracks that I believe should be replaced by a short track. I'd throw Kentucky Speedway out there, or Chicagoland Speedway, which of course recently a development deal at that track got struck down. I don't know what that necessarily was, but maybe NASCAR was thinking about messing with Chicagoland Speedway next year until that got struck down. I'm not sure, but the point is, there are plenty of 1.5 miles on the circuit that I would have probably rathered NASCAR replace with a short track than Auto Club Speedway. There's only 2 tracks on the schedule that are 2 miles long and are that same kind of shape and configuration, and Auto Club Speedway's been around for over 20 years, and while it's not my favorite track by any means, it's not a bad racetrack. Even this year's race was decent, so it wouldn't have been my first choice, and I completely understand why maybe fans in Southern California or fans that grew up going to Auto Club Speedway in its current configuration are feeling a bit conflicted by today's announcement. I know even if they announced that Texas was going to be bulldozed and turned into a half-mile short track, I'd be excited because I want more short tracks, and and I think the current Texas Motor Speedway track is not great, does not put on good racing, but part of me would still be a little disappointed, a little conflicted, because I grew up going to the 1.5 mile version of Texas Motor Speedway. So I understand there are plenty of people out there that grew up with the 2 mile Auto Club Speedway. They like it the way it is. They have a strong attachment to it. I understand that today's announcement might be disappointing to some and is likely conflicting to many others, but I can only speak for myself for sure, but I'm extremely excited by today's announcement. Let's get into some of the details, and we'll talk about why NASCAR choosing to make this change at Auto Club Speedway of all tracks makes a ton of sense, because when you really step back and look at it, it makes total and complete sense. Like, how did we not see this coming, honestly? So for starters, as was reported first by The Athletic, NASCAR submitted plans to San Bernardino County to redevelop all of the land that Auto Club Speedway currently sits on, changing the 2 mile track, of course, into a 1/2 mile racetrack. And according to these plans, construction is set to begin after the spring 2021 race. And they're planning on construction being completed in time for the start of the 2022 season. So fans of traditional Auto Club Speedway, you should still have one more chance next year to see the track in its current 2 mile layout before, hopefully by 2022, in time for the next gen car, mind you, it'll be turned into a short track at the start of that season. So pretty quick turnaround given the scale of some of these changes. Now, also reported by The Athletic, here is a sort of chart, a basic outline, I guess, of what the facility is going to look like. You see right there, the track is in the middle of your screen. You got grandstands all across the front stretch, as well as, some into turns 1 and 2, it looks like, and a little bit in turn 3. You can see the track is very narrow. According to reports, the front straightaway you see there, how it's slightly bent, is actually going to be part of the current Auto Club Speedway front straightaway. So they may not change that very much, or some of those grandstands right there. And apparently the back straightaway is going to be part of Pit Road as it stands currently. So we're talking about a very narrow racetrack, as you can see there. Now, according to reports, the straightaways are going to be relatively flat, but the turns, as tight as they are going to be heavily banked. They're talking like Bristol style of banking. They're calling this whole thing Next Gen in California, which I must say, come on guys, we gotta come up with something better than Next Gen. I mean, just calling something Next Gen doesn't make it cool automatically. You gotta come up with better names. We already got the Next Gen car, come on now. But there you have it, a basic look at the plans. It's hard for me to really look through and kind of determine what some of these other random boxes and things are. It looks like off in the corner here, you see what may be like a go-kart track. That's what I'm thinking that could be. It looks like a small intestine or something. Also, this area right here outside of turn 4 is labeled garages, which I would assume is where all the teams will be working during the weekend outside of the track, similar to like Martinsville. I think Martinsville, don't they work outside the track? I actually don't. I've never been to Martinsville. I think they do. A lot of other stuff that's not super clearly labeled. Of course, you have the grandstands there, like I said, in turns 1 and 2, as well as the front stretch, and a little bit in turns 4. They talked about adding new club level suites and all that great stuff. Looks like a lot of parking lots as well. I'm guessing maybe that's what that is at the top there along the backstretch. Some parking lots also over there kind of near turns 1. I guess that's parking lots. Hard to say. It's really anyone's guess. Just speculating at this point. And just what's pictured there in that little map, it does not make up the entirety of the land that Auto Club Speedway currently sits on. There's speculation that some of the extra land that they're now going to have, with that extra space, they might be building new warehouses for NASCAR to do business out of. They might also be building restaurants or shopping areas similar to what's currently outside of Daytona International Speedway or what's at Kansas Speedway right now. Remember, NASCAR at the beginning of this year signed a development deal with Hillwood to develop some of the areas around now NASCAR-owned racetracks. Because remember, since NASCAR and ISC merged last year, NASCAR now owns Auto Club Speedway. Like the NASCAR owns this track. And that leads into what I want to talk about, why Auto Club Speedway? Why this track of all tracks? I mentioned all those 1.5 miles that a lot of fans are kind of tired of and would like to maybe see turned into a short track. Why Auto Club Speedway? Why did this track get chosen for this major project? Well, there's a number of reasons, and I'll start with the fact that NASCAR owns Auto Club Speedway. NASCAR now owns, I think, roughly 12 tracks on the NASCAR schedule. They own tracks like Daytona, Chicagoland Speedway, Auto Club Speedway, Watkins Glen, Talladega, Richmond, to name a few others. These are tracks that NASCAR now owns, which now makes it really easy for NASCAR to make decisions regarding those tracks. I think that right there is why a track like Texas Motor Speedway didn't get tapped for this. Because Texas Motor Speedway, also Las Vegas Motor Speedway, also Kentucky Speedway, all 1.5 mile tracks are owned by Speedway Motorsports, so they are not owned by NASCAR. That would have made those negotiations a bit more difficult. Now, another reason Auto Club Speedway makes total sense is Land in Southern California, if you live there, you know what I'm talking about. Things in Southern California are expensive. Yes, Auto Club Speedway is located, like I said, almost about an hour away from Los Angeles, but Los Angeles is big and sprawling. I lived there at the beginning of this year, so I've seen some of this firsthand, but there's just a lot of different like mini cities all surrounding LA, and it's expensive in Los Angeles. So the land that Auto Club Speedway is sitting on is expensive. It's worth a whole lot. And right now, all of that land is taken up by a racetrack. With NASCAR turning a 2-mile track into a half-mile track, that frees up, like we saw in that chart, a lot of extra space that NASCAR already owns, space that NASCAR can build some awesome things at. Sure, some of it might be used for things like storage, etc., but like we mentioned earlier with their deal with Hillwood and what they've done at Daytona, part of Daytona Rising, and then of course the one Daytona, I think is what it's called, or at Kansas or other tracks as well, I think there's a good chance that NASCAR is going to develop a good amount of that land that's currently where Auto Club Speedway sits, and they're going to turn it into other, entertainment experiences for fans who are there for a race weekend to visit, to enjoy. So I see this as a big win for fans in the Southern California area that typically go to Auto Club Speedway, like to go to that race. Maybe that's the one race you go to a year because the next closest track is probably Phoenix, maybe Sonoma. I mean, don't have a whole lot of tracks out west, NASCAR tracks that you can just get to easily. Las Vegas, I guess, is pretty close. Still, my point is you don't have a whole lot. You definitely don't have any short tracks within driving distance of California. NASCAR fans in Southern California that want to watch the Cup Series cars race at a short track now are going to have way more to do in the surrounding area than just go to the track and watch a race. So this is a great way for NASCAR to make more money with a land that they already own, and also give fans who are coming to the racetrack more to do. So I think it's a win-win. And now a third reason that Auto Club Speedway makes a lot of sense. Currently the racing at Auto Club Speedway is not that bad. It's fun. You get cars fanned out 4 and 5 wide on the wide front stretch going into that sweeping turn 1. It's a cool track. There's not really another track on the schedule quite like Auto Club Speedway, even though Michigan is kind of similar from a distance. But while Auto Club Speedway puts on a pretty good show right now, it's due for a repave here, probably just a few years down the line. And if Michigan taught us anything, and just traditionally, anytime you have to repave an intermediate track in the NASCAR Cup Series, the racing suffers. It turns into a one-groove track usually, and it's just not fun to watch. Drivers hate repaves, fans hate repaves, and California Speedway is due for a repave here in just a few short years. So while the racing, should the current 2-mile configuration remain, might be decent for a few years here, it's likely going to get much worse when NASCAR would have to repave the track here in the coming years. So this might be great timing, honestly, to sort of swap out Auto Club Speedway with a short track. And then the fourth and final reason that I can really see, the final big reason I'd see for NASCAR choosing Auto Club Speedway is Auto Club Speedway is a huge market. I just mentioned how there's only one other NASCAR track in California, and it's way upstate in Sonoma. Los Angeles is the second most populated city in the United States, and I mentioned how it's got a lot of surrounding areas that are also very populated themselves. That is a huge market, and of course, Hollywood is there. It's the media empire of the world. NASCAR is the biggest and most popular motorsport in the country. NASCAR needs to go all in, needs to be a mainstay in Southern California. There are so many people in that region of the country, and so many of them love racing. So I think it's genius for NASCAR to really make a strong pitch to the people that live in Southern California that NASCAR is here to stay, and NASCAR is willing to make a huge investment in that region, in their racetrack that they have there, developing the surrounding area, pouring all this money into Southern California, into Fontana, into that land that Auto Club Speedway sits on. It shows that NASCAR is here to stay. NASCAR is here in Los Angeles, in the LA area, to stay long term. And I think that's a big pitch to fans and maybe potential fans in that region. So it's the second biggest city in the country. Like I said, it's the media capital of the world. NASCAR should race in or near LA, and I think changing Auto Club Speedway to a short track is going to bring in a lot of new fans and is going to up the excitement for that race more so than has existed in previous years. Anyway, that's my long-winded analysis, I guess, of this deal. NASCAR announcing today that they are going to turn Auto Club Speedway into a short track. Didn't see this one coming. I gotta say, this one slapped me right across the face. But honestly, it was a welcome slap. I mean, again, like I said earlier, if you're a big fan of Auto Club Speedway, I understand how you'd feel conflicted right now, or maybe even disappointed. But I think I speak for, I can only speak for myself, truly. But I feel like I speak for a significant portion of the NASCAR fan base when I say that I am excited to see what this new Martinsville-Bristol hybrid short track looks like in Southern California. Like I said, this is the first new short track to be added to the Cup Series schedule in decades. I have a feeling this is going to be very popular with fans. There's going to be a lot of anticipation before this race. And of course, fans have been pushing NASCAR to try and add other short tracks to the schedule, like Nashville Fairgrounds in Tennessee continues to get talked about. That track is still years away likely from landing a Cup Series date, but if this new track in Southern California turns out to be a huge success, very popular with fans, that again might help get the ball rolling a little bit more as far as Nashville and Nashville Fairgrounds is concerned. Of course, also how Nashville Super Speedway does next year on the Cup schedule. That's going to matter for Nashville as well, but a lot of balls up in the air right here. I'm excited to see Auto Club Speedway turned into a short track. That's just me, but let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Are you excited about this change, or are you concerned or disappointed perhaps? Let me know what you guys think of today's news. That's the big thing I want to cover in this episode. We've got plenty to get to later this week, but I just wanted to leave it at that for today. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe if you are new. I do these types of videos pretty much every single day. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram as well, and of course a huge thank you to my fantastic Patreon supporters. I couldn't do this show without your tremendous support, so for that, I thank you greatly. Like I said, we have a lot to get to this week, so I will be seeing you all a lot here over the next few days. Lots to talk about before Saturday night, Richmond, second race of the Cup Series playoffs right around the corner. So have a great rest of your Tuesday, y'all, and I will see you again very, very soon.